News Radio 1400 KTEM. Jamie Garrett here for the Temple High School Football Coaches Show. Coming up in about a half hour, we're going to have the UMHB Coaches Show. John Wallin, Pete Fredenberg will be live at 6:30 this evening. But let's talk some Temple High School football. Another big win for the Wildcats in front of a huge crowd Friday night. Both sides well represented, but the Temple Wildcats fans were out in force, and that's got to make it a lot of fun for you, the coaches, and certainly the kids.
Well, it is, Jamie. I mean, it's one of the reasons you want to coach in Temple, and it's one of the reasons you love Temple, Texas, and love Temple High School. I mean, this fan base has proven through the years they like football. It's a football town. They like the blue front, white back football, and they like it when it's good, and that's okay. That's what we want. So, extremely fun atmosphere on Friday night. The homecoming crowd. I don't think it was just because it was homecoming. I think a lot of it's because we're doing well. I had a good opponent come in, opponent that was undefeated, and doing their thing. So fun night for us, a huge win. And
I will say this, at halftime, members of the 79-92 state championship teams came up and talked with Gene and talked with Coach McQueen. And at halftime, we had 12 guys, a dozen guys up in the booth, and it was really kind of a melding of the newer Temple Wildcats who were up at halftime and doing well, and certainly the old school Wildcats up there. I will say I've got that audio up at KTEMnews.com. This audio from tonight's Coaches Show, in addition to that halftime interview with Gene, who was just loving every minute of it. So that's up at KTEMnews.com. But on to the game itself, you knew it was going to be a big atmosphere. It was an undefeated team coming in, only giving up 23 points in the year, scored 41, and certainly could have scored more had you chosen to at that point in the game. And but it's got to feel good knowing that you kind of in that game we talked about it Tuesday of last week and Friday, something's got to give. And it was good that the Wildcats were able to give a little bit.
Absolutely. And just to comment on your 92 and all that, we were very fortunate. We had the 93 graduating class. Many guys off of that team came in our locker room for the game. And that's a thing that I love about Temple. And, of course, the job that, those guys have done and Coach McQueen did here will never be, quite frankly, will never be replicated. We just, we want to be relevant now, and we think by being relevant now, we increase the relevancy of those years as well. People are going to talk, and people are going to talk about Temple football, and that's our job, is to get them talking about Temple football again. So, my hat's off to all those guys through the years that have contributed to the legacy here, and we're just trying to contribute in our own way now. And I think when we do, that creates a legitimacy to what those guys did as well. As far as the game's concerned, Jamie, we knew it was going to be a tough, hard-fought contest. An atrocious third quarter for us, honestly, probably as poorly as we've done offensively, in a while. Defensively, I thought we hung in there in the third quarter, got some stops. They did score on the opening drive, and I think that created some momentum there. And then, of course, by us going 3 and out with our first series, we didn't do ourselves any favor. I thought in the first half we were probably as good as we could be, to be honest with you. I thought we scored on all but one possession. We scored on our last possession of the half with 7 seconds to go in the half, knowing that they were going to get the football to start the second half. Defensively, as Coach Stewart will explain later, we gave up a couple of cheap ones, something that he's really preached hard that we don't do. But we're also talking about a football team that's averaging, almost 450 yards a game, and it was averaging over 40 points a game. So I think when you look at it in that retrospect, we beat a really good football team, and quite frankly, probably kept them in it longer than I wish we would have. But the object is to get the W, and that's what we did.
Usually it's the 3 and outs that the defense gets for you. This past Friday night, you were able to get some turnovers defensively, and those turnovers were huge. One huge for a defensive reason in the third quarter, but in the first quarter, you had a chance to go up 2 scores after getting an interception from Clint Cole. Clint did a great job, high-pointed the ball, and got good field position that the offense then took advantage of.
Well, Jamie, we really try to preach a real physical brand of football, and and we felt like, and certainly I think the film points out we felt like we were the more physical football team Friday night. Now, one thing I know is our kids are tough, and quite frankly, they've got a little bit of a whiny kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of way of approaching things. They complain a lot and complain to officials a lot and things like that. And we think toughness is a big brand of what we want to be. We want to be a tough football team, and we think we were much tougher than they were Friday night, quite frankly. And I think the film shows that. So, I thought our physicality in that game really paid dividends for us. Now they've got some fast cats on. Number 7 is going to Rice, and number 6 is going to be an offer guy, no question about it. And quarterback's really good too. So, it was a hard fought football game, and the defense creating the turnovers. We were able to capitalize obviously on that one that Clint intercepted, and then unfortunately in the second half the one Ashton intercepted at a real key time. We didn't go convert. But then when you put all the pieces together, Jamie, and you look at how the game played out, there's a lot of talk about, was he in or was he out on their play down there to tie the game up. It seems to get lost in the conversations. We actually went down and made it a 2-score game after that. So, you can't just assume at that point, in or out, what was going to happen. So, we fought when we had to fight, and we did what we had to do to win a football game, and that's what you do, and you move to the next one because that's the only one that matters is the next one.
That's one of what I love about that last run by Marcus Hatcher, 71 yards. And I think for Marcus Hatcher, that was a real breaking of what people expect from him, which a short yardage back, they expect to see power. But he separated in the secondary and just blew the doors off of the secondary of a pretty fast team.
He did, Jamie. And quite frankly, you may remember in the first half he had a pretty long run, too. I want to say it was 40 yards or so, 35 or 40 yards. Marcus Hatcher is not slow. There's no question about it. He is a big guy, but he also has some moves and some shake to him. Jeff made an unbelievably great run. I thought that got called back, for what I thought was very, very questionable holding call on our outside receiver. And once again, there's all that going on the sidelines and all that hollering and screaming on their side. And, at some point you got to line up and play football, and you got to quit worrying about everything else and go to work. And I think our kids did a great job of that.
You think part of that has to do with the fact that they were having something done to them that hadn't happened to this team all year, and that's they got punched in the face and found themselves down big early?
Jamie, I contend that's what it's all about. I know this. We preach to our defensive guys, you've got to be physical, and we there's a lot of things that are in our control and a lot of things that aren't in our control. And I think our brand of physicality is paying dividends for us. I don't think there's any question about it. And I think, when you get up against a stronger, more physical team, I think that's what happens. And I thought we were. Offensively, they're not like us. People want to try to compare. There's no comparison, actually. We're much more of a running football team. We're much more of we tend to predicate what we do on the run. They tend to predicate what they do on the pass. And they've got some cats that can do it now. My hat's off to those guys. They throw the ball well. He's a 71% completion guy. I think Coach Van Meer does a good job. I think they've turned that deal around a little bit. And I think they've got some good things going on, got some good athletes, and they're a good football team. I think they're a team, quite frankly, in Division II that can make some noise and would expect it out of this district. So, I'll say it again, Jamie, it's as poor as we were in the third quarter, and for whatever reason we were, some of that attributed to them, obviously. I thought we rallied in the fourth and particularly rallied in the last 5 to 6 minutes of the game to clinch the ball game. The play that Marquell makes at the end, and then of course Marcus's run are two big plays in the game. It seemed to get lost in all the commotion of all the talk and commotion of how close they were. Honestly, when you look at it, it quite frankly wasn't as close at the end as everybody makes it out to be.
Yeah, and certainly a big play at the end, special teams-wise, to recover an onside kick. It looked close from up in the booth. I don't know how close it was down on the field, how big the pucker factor was as far as being nervous about that. Do you just strategically that first line of defense, is that line like a cliff right there? They're not supposed to go past that, or do you want them to go up there and jump and grab that ball?
Well, it's tricky, Jamie. I'm not going to lie to you. Anytime there's an onside kick attempt, it requires execution on either side of the football. And so, quite frankly, I thought we handled it well. Aaron did a great job of coming up. What we typically like to do is if that ball's kicked hard, we'd like for it to go on through and then let the guys behind them on that hands team, and then the guys in front block. That one happened to come We actually kind of knew it was fixing to come to that side. They were trying to overload the other side and get us over there, and we were hollering to our guys, to watch it. It's coming over here. I think it came to Leonard Ferris over there, and he was a guy that, was trying to decide whether or not he wanted to get on it, and then Aaron went ahead and got on it, and honestly, they really didn't get a very big shot at it. I mean, Aaron had it under control long before. I say long, that's a bad word, but before they had an opportunity to make the recovery. So, it's about executing. It's about executing plays, and then they've got to execute their kick, and then we've got to make sure they don't, and we did a good job with that.
I think we all found out something in the third quarter on Friday night, and that's that Temple has a kicker, or a punter, rather. Normally, if we see a punt at all, it's Chad back there, and he does a pretty good job, just a couple yards from the line of scrimmage to boot that ball down there, and certainly is effective in the fact that it doesn't give him a chance to line up two guys back there to return it like they do. But when you're punting the ball away like that in the third quarter, it's not something this offense is used to. I heard you say for whatever reason it was. Is there a reason, going back and looking on film, you don't see the offense struggling to pick up third downs? So through that third quarter, I think there was a point in time where they had 2 touchdowns versus a first down for Temple. It just was a sluggish third quarter.
Well, I mean, it's just, Jamie, offensive football is all about focus and execution. You can be physical, you can be all those things I've talked about, but you got to execute, and that requires execution in throwing game, execution in running game, and offense is offense. I mean, I hear coaches talk all the time, and there's some truth to it. I don't necessarily. I find some of it excuse making, but realistically, you can have 10 guys do their job, and on whether it be offense or defense, 10 guys can do their job, and all it takes is one to make a mistake, and that's the nature of the game. And I thought our execution in the third quarter was very poor up front, and quite frankly, our execution, in the throwing game wasn't very good. We had 2 third and shorts we didn't make the first down on. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, we just can't do that, and then we had we had a couple of first downs there, or at least one, I think, on one drive, and I probably, quite frankly, I'll take the hit on the call I made. I wished I'd just pounded it up there on that 1 3rd and 2 that I think we had. But, it always comes down, Jamie, to execution offensively, and that starts up front. And quite frankly, we missed an assignment on one of those, and missed a block, and then we got, of course, we got some pressure when we were trying to throw the ball, which changed the throw. So, but I thought I'll keep going back. I mean, in the first half, we couldn't have been better. We attributed to our own demise, and they really didn't do anything different against us. We just didn't execute as well as we did. And
Jeff came up with a huge reception out of the backfield on a 4th and 20.
Absolutely,
and
great
picked up
play.
A 22-yard reception.
Yes.
Is that something that you guys wish you could do more of in the passing game? Is get him involved, or was that just the right guy at right time and Chad made the right read?
A little bit of both. I mean, we do have an empty set where we do get Jeff involved in it. He's actually been open a couple of times, and against Conley he was running open, and we had a bad snap. Chad had to pick it up and throw it too fast, or we might have had a touchdown there. So it's something we like to do, and Jeff couldn't have run a better route. I mean, it's actually a read route where he's going to run to the chains basically, and then it was an awesome job by Chad, and a great job up front of giving him protection, because he really had great protection. Jeff did a great job of sitting the route down and then working into the open space in the zone, and Chad did a great job throwing it to him, picking up that first down. I thought that was a big play in the ball game.
All right. Well, it's another win and 2 more to go for a district championship Friday night against Waco. We'll take a break. We'll come back to talk to Coach Stewart. When we get back for our final segment, we'll talk a bit about the Lions and about what's coming up at WISD Stadium on Friday night. That's coming up as we continue with the Temple High School Football Coaches Show. And, of course, we've got the UMHB Coaches Show coming up here at 6:30 tonight on News Radio 1400 KTEM. News Radio 1400 KTEM. Welcome back to the Temple High School Football Coaches Show. Head coach Mike Spradlin joining me. I'm Jamie Garrett, and of course joined, as promised, by defensive coordinator Scott Stewart. This is kind of turning into a Johnny Carson and Ed McMahon thing with the number of times that we've gotten Coach Stewart in here to talk with us this year. But what a year it's been, of course, undefeated in the district, coming off another huge win against Hutto, a team coming into the game that it was giving up less than 4 points a game through their undefeated 6-0 start. Does that, I know the coach speak thing is we're going to focus on each week, we're going to take the team for what they are, but you've got to know in the back of your mind that this could end up being a defensive struggle. So your guys, as they usually are, but more so than usual in a night like this, not like Friday night, obviously, it's all hands on deck. I mean, you've got to know that you will be called on several times in the game to possibly win the game.
Yeah, and they do a good job on defense, and I'm tell you what, our offense kind of. I was surprised that that just shows you that's a testament to what these guys do, Coach Spradlin and his group do. But we knew we'd have to go out there and get some stops, but we also knew they were going to get theirs, and we talked all week long about focusing on not giving up cheap ones, and we did twice. I mean, again, I know we talk about shutouts and not scoring points, but I'm also pretty realistic in the fact that going back and look at it, they should have had 285, 300 yards and 21 points that they kind of, they got us. They got good football players. They spread the field. They make you defend the field. And we gave up 2 cheap ones, which, those are the ones that we've got to really focus on getting rid of and getting out of there. But, one thing about these guys, and there's a couple of guys in particular, and we talked about it on Saturday, the bigger the moment, the more they step up. And it's fun to be around kids like that. 31 Markwell Ponce on that last play not the last play, but the one where we stopped him on the 1 yard line. He covered a guy out of the backfield, knocked him down, then went and knocked the guy out of bounds. And that's just he's one of those kids that the bigger the moment, there is no moment too big. The bigger the moment, the faster he seems to play. So I was real proud of our overall effort. We've obviously got some things to shore up. But I was also, it's fun. It's fun. Knowing that you can give up 30, 34 points and you're probably going to win a game because your offense has just been unbelievable.
That play on the goal line, what's great about that is there's 5 or 6 opportunities in the sequence of just those few seconds of that play. Anything could have gone wrong because it's a trick play. All the motion starts left, and then they flip it back. Anywhere in there, guys could have gotten over-aggressive, could have forgotten where they were supposed to be, their responsibilities. But that goes a lot to say about what's above the shoulders with this defense, that play specifically.
Yes, sir. And, we had one kid out of position. Believe it or not, we're calling that kind of the trick play of the year. I mean, we've seen it on video about 3 or 4 different times, people using it against other people. I mean, we saw South Lake Carroll use it against Westlake, and then Westlake use it against somebody. And then so we have about a 10-minute period every week where we work on just funky stuff. Wasn't prepared, hadn't seen them show that. But we do critical situations and stuff like that. The one thing that we always talk about is pull the trigger. Don't hesitate. I mean, if you see it, go play it. And Markwell did it. His responsibility was to cover the back out, but I'm going to tell you what he saw nobody. The guy that was responsible for quarterback contain had misfitted, So he came over and said, Coach, nobody was on him, so I knocked down the quarterback who was the intended receiver. I just knocked him down and went and made a play. And I said, well, good job.
Well, there you go. And, of course, that was – late in the ball game that could have tied up the score, but 2 big interceptions. And, every interception's big, especially when you've gone a couple of weeks without getting a turnover and you've been in the right place at the right time, just haven't made the play. To get 2 of them and to get 2 of them that end up being so big, one directly leads to a touchdown and a lead. The other is, a 2-touchdown lead, I guess, at that point in time, but the other being at a critical point in the second half where they were beginning to get their legs underneath them offensively and finding some things that they could do, and huge interception in the end zone, and that's one of your sophomores out there making that interception.
And that's one of 4 sophomores. So, I mean, part of that cheap one we gave up is part of that learning process, which bodes well for the future, but it is, to say the least, frustrating at times, but I am so very proud of those kids because there are a lot of 15-year-olds that couldn't do what these kids are doing. The first interception, we knew that if they got in 3-by-1 sets, they like to go to their 6'9" receiver, and Clint, who stands about 5'8" if he's got cleats on. We told him I said, hey, if you can bait him into one, they like to throw the fade over there. He baited him in, he went up and made a play. Ashton's was seriously impressive because it was out of a scramble situation, so we converted the zone to a man, and then he kind of tracked him down, stayed in his hip pocket, and made an unbelievable catch on the ball. And that kid, for being 15 years old, he's got nothing but, I mean, his potential's through the roof. He's got every tool you can imagine. He had an opportunity to pick another one in the other end zone, the play before that 4th down play, and it just got away from him. But, I mean, he almost made a phenomenal play there. So he's coming into his own. Again, with sophomores, you worry about the focus and the consistency of focus, but every week that kid gets better. And if he continues that, he'll be special here for too long.
And for a sophomore to be starting in the defensive backfield and be playing such a big part in a 4-2-5 defense, for it to be the 7th game, technically the 8th game of the season if you count the cancellation in Bryan, to have that long into a season with the way offenses play now and to have that be your first 50-yard play of the season, I know it hurts and you get that fixed before the next week, obviously, but that in itself, with the way offenses are designed, is a very impressive number.
It is, and part of it is part of the way you cancel out these 50-yard plays is you get kids that can run. And I'm going to tell you what, I told one of the doctors, one of the team physicians, we were playing a couple weeks ago, and I said, I'm going to tell you one thing about these kids. They can run, and they will knock the fire out of you. So, I mean, that's what they bring to it. And we had on that, they ran a little slant, converted it, and we had bad eyes. And again, that's lack of experience. That's just seeing that situation over and over and over again. But, I mean, I can't tell you how proud I am of these kids. And I hate giving up points more than probably, and every defensive coach will tell you that. But for whatever reason, these kids, when it has to be done so far, they get it done. And I think that's a lot of lessons learned from the Westlake game, because we didn't always finish it. You know what I mean? There would be a one play here where we didn't finish that drive. We didn't. So there's a lot of growth going on. And again, I reiterate, we're talking about the sophomores, but there was one kid that came back from last year that's actually playing the same position that he played. So to see these kids kind of accept their role and understand and try to fit this, I mean, it's fun to watch and it's fun to be a part of.
Well, another sophomore that was kind of thrust into it starting this week, really starting last week with an injury, is Rogers Franklin. And that's another crucial piece of that defense there, which is those two linebackers in the middle. And he had another great game on Friday night. And he's just another one of those sophomores that's stepped up and taken on a role.
He is. And he's done a phenomenal job of that. I mean, I'd be lying to you if I said last week his eyes weren't as big as saucers. But I remember my first varsity game, and it was the same way. And we talk all the time where, learn how to focus and learn how to use that nervousness. If you don't have it, I'm a little bit worried about you. But I'm going to tell you what, I never played in a game as big as in that atmosphere when I was 15 years old. I mean, I'm from up the road, and if you got 3,000 people at the game, it's a packed house. So, I mean, I can't tell you how proud I am of that kid, how he's come along. He's growing up fast. Necessity is the mother of invention. But he's growing up fast, and he's had two pretty good weeks. There's sophomore mistakes. There's some things we can shore up. We've got to really focus on our coverage concepts, and that's what it is with those guys. We really focus on the actual focus. Every play, remind yourself what you're looking at, what you're doing, and those are things that I don't necessarily have to have that conversation with Edward Escobedo and with Mark Wilpons, because they've been there, they've done that. Not that they've arrived, but there's just going to be, with an older kid with maturity, there's going to be more consistency of focus. So we're just trying to bring them sophomores along, and I couldn't be more proud of what they're doing right now.
We're talking with defensive coordinator Scott Stewart here on the Temple High School Football Coaches Show. And what was it that happened at halftime? What did they do differently in the second half that allowed them to make some plays and finish off some drives that they weren't able to in the first half?
Well, I mean, what they did all year long was that they started counting. I mean, and that's essentially what that style of offense does is you have 11, and you can't – I mean, they look for the advantage. If you put 3 over 2 on this side and you put 2 over 2 over here, they just look and they go. And if you put 3 over 3 on both sides, you got 5 men in the box, or 3 over 2 on both sides, you got 5 men in the box, they run the ball. So when we had a 2-point lead, 2-score lead, we were trying to coax them into running the ball just for time management, you know what I mean? And again – they made some plays. I mean, they got a couple of D1 kids. I know the number 7 kid is going to Rice. I mean, I talked to one of their coaches before that I've known from a previous place. Number 6, he's statistically one of the better receivers in the district, and he's probably better in person. I mean, that kid can go. And I'm going to tell you who surprised me, that quarterback, the Herrick kid. I mean, that kid's as good as we've faced. And so they're gonna do those things. They're gonna get there. They've got a good system. They count you. So we tried to, and again, I put a lot of pressure on a sophomore linebacker, but I tried to change up the looks, try to show him in, put him back out. And there were a lot of times that he did a very good job of that, and there were some times he didn't. And when he didn't, that kind of happens. And then we talked all week. There's going to be with the teams like that, there's a premium put on technique, and there is a definite premium put on tackling. And when we did it, we were fine, and when we didn't, they got us a little bit.
And certainly they did exactly what you're saying, where every play they just look over to the sideline, got the play there, he'd give it to the offensive line and go. As a defensive coordinator, I've never seen this personally as a fan or as an announcer, and that is running the same formation just about every play. They would come out on first down, and they'd have a shotgun formation, 2 receivers on each side, with a running back on the hip pocket of the quarterback. And then on second down and beyond, they would move to that pistol formation. For the rest of the drive, they'd move to the pistol formation, 2 receivers each side. Is that to simplify the offense for them? Is that just because that they do exactly what they do every single time in waiting to see what the defense does, and so it makes it simple? What is the reason for that?
When you have a 4-man front, and again, I've never coached a day of offense of my life, but I understand what stress is on a defense. And when you have 4 hands on the ground, that means you only have 7 to defend the rest of the field. There's some good and some bad in that. And what they did was they you stay in doubles because you stress the defense, or in theory you do. It makes you make a decision on the defensive side of the ball. Do I really want to stay in this zone, or do I want to put a man in the box and man up one side? And so, with teams that are efficient, I thought they were pretty good up front with their O-line. If they want to run the ball, then you got to put somebody in the box. And when and then what they would do is they would just check it. So what we did is we tried to change up the looks on them. And again, every time they offset the back, it was a pass formation. They're doing that to keep 6 on 6. They're doing that because we were getting pretty good rush early. They were free releasing their back early. They stopped doing that to get max protection. As max as they could. They got 5 linemen and then a back to block your 4, which – good for those guys. So we started spying our Mike linebacker a little bit more. We started, and we got some stops, but they're good at what they do. And so, but that's why. They got into 1 snap of trips. They threw an interception, so they went right back to doubles.
Well, and that spy seemed to work several times throughout the game, because you could immediately see as soon as he started to run, Herrick started to scramble either way, boom, here would come one of the linebackers and make a stop most times. So that seemed to be pretty effective there as well. So head coach Mike Spradlin going to join us here in a couple of minutes. Defensive coordinator Scott Stewart joining us here for segment number 2 on the Temple High School Football Coaches Show. We'll take a break, come back, wrap things up, get ready for the UMHB Coaches Show. That's next on News Radio 1400 KTEM. News Radio 1400 KTEM. Jamie Garrett here with head coach Mike Spradlin. My thanks again to defensive coordinator Scott Stewart. A couple of seconds to go before we hit the UMHB Coaches Show. Friday night, Waco High, they are certainly a team that started out slow in the year, but they've proven that they can win some ball games.
They have, Jamie. They're right in the hunt. They're looking at it mathematically, and of course, nothing's been set in stone mathematically, except we know 2 teams that are out right now, or we say that, Conley and University. But Waco High is everything everybody thought they'd be. They're athletic. They've had a pretty big injury bug. They've now had an open date, so I'm going to assume they've had an opportunity to get some of those guys healed up. Going into their house, they have to win. We have to win. So, that's what we've told our kids. It's the only thing that guarantees us to keep playing further is keep winning. And that's all we know right now. There is no guarantees right now of anything. We've got to win Friday night. If we do that, then we'll like where we sit. But we've got to keep winning.
Offensively, what does Waco High do well?
They're a spread. They're going to be a spread, so let's put some pressure on us. Got a good quarterback, can run. A running back good, can run. Big up front. So we'll have to defend the pass again this week as well as the run. And then defensively, they've got 2 really good linebackers inside and a big old nose guard. And then they've got a Baylor commit at corner. So, that's what I'm saying. Everybody thought that Waco High would be a big game coming into the season. It still is. I promise you that. They're good athletes. They do a good job. They're well coached. And so we'll have our hands full Friday night. We got to go in there and do what we do and go win another football game. The only thing that matters is the next one.
Pre-game show 7 o'clock, kickoff 7:30, and we'll chat again Friday before the game starts. Head coach Mike Spradlin joining me again. Thanks to Coach Scott Stewart. We'll take a break, come back, and get you to that UMHB Coaches Show here on News Radio 1400 KTEM.